Warning, viewer discretion advised. The story of Cinderleah. Once upon a time in the United Kingdom, a prince was born. He was no regular prince, but his parents' only child and heir to the throne. The prince followed his parents' lead and was regarded by all as a kind prince with a heart of gold. Never a day went by when the prince did not feed the poor or care for the sick. He was, of course, his parents' delight, but also their greatest worry. For who would the prince one day marry? Surely she would have to be of good stock, pleasing to the eye and well educated. The prince had his pick of the most eligible maidens of the land, but each time he was introduced to a potential suitor, he would brush them off as if bored. As the years went by, the king became frantic that his only son would never marry. Fortunately, as the old saying goes, a mother understands what her child does not say. The queen knew her son was special and that his soulmate could not be an ordinary princess. A royal declaration was issued. Every maiden of every province, including those seated in prior wars, is ordered to attend a royal ball. The empire was set abuzz as every eligible woman primed herself for the party of the century. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world where the sun always shone, there lived a young girl named Cinderleah. Her parents, always too busy with community matters, ignored their daughter and left her at home to wash up after their endless lunch and dinner parties. Tired to the bone, Cinderleah would stare out of her bedroom window and see the neighbours' girls frolicking in freedom while she cleaned, scrubbed and cared for her spoiled younger siblings. Her only friends were the birds and mice who sang to her of lands far away where dreams are made. Her mother, an especially vain woman, loved to remind Cinderleah that she would never be as dainty as her sisters or as charming as her brothers. One morning, as Cinderleah was braiding the morning bread, there was a knock at the door. She rushed to answer lest her family wake too early from the noise. Unfortunately, she was too late and her father's forbidding voice filled the house. "Cinderleah! How many times have I told you to keep this house quiet when your family is asleep? Have you not seen me working out with thy trainer? Do you think it's easy? And your poor mother, the facialists did a real number on her. She refuses to show her face to anyone. How dare you, Cinderleah? Have I not taught you any better?" Cinderleah hung her head in shame. But then she remembered the knock at the door. Cinderleah opened the door, but before she could read the hand-delivered invitation, her spoiled sister grabbed it out of her hand and began cartwheeling across the foyer, chanting, "We're going to a ball! We're going to a ball!" Cinderleah could hardly believe her ears. A ball for whom? Her know-it-all sister feigned a curtsy and said, "The Prince Regent of the United Kingdom is looking for a bride. Every maid must attend." "Why, that means I must go!" cried Cinderleah. "You attend a ball? Mother would never take you. Don't you remember when you wanted those Uggs so badly because the attics can be so cold? What did you do? What did Mother do? She bought me 3 pairs and punished you for your impudence." "But it says every eligible maiden must attend. It's by royal decree." Cinderleah's mother walked in just then, her face pinched in a permanent frown, and pronounced condescendingly, "Why, Cinderleah, of course you may go, assuming you finish all your chores and have something appropriate to wear." "Oh, thank you, Mother, thank you. I promise everything will be done." Meanwhile, back in the British Isles, the palace was a flurry of activity. No expense was spared. Chocolates with the prince's handsome face were brought in from Belgium. The finest wine was handpicked from the king's ample cellar. The kingdom's most talented tailors fitted the family for their royal attire. And the royal chef was ordered to make the prince's favourite foods. The good king and queen walked with an extra spring in their step, excited at the prospect of their son finding his heart's desire. The prince, on the other hand, was a bundle of nerves and found that jogging was the only way to stay sane while the rest of the world went insane on his behalf. When jogging no longer helped, he immersed himself in books of wisdom, hoping to find answers. Of course, he only had more questions. His friends mocked him and thought it strange that he could not find a princess among the prettiest ladies of the land. Cinderleah had never been more excited. She spent her days doing housework and her nights sewing the perfect dress. No allowance was provided for her gown. Her father claimed that times were harder since it looked like Obama would be running it for another term. Cinderleah gently suggested that the weekly country club kiddish should be cancelled in order to provide funds. Her father's face turned green, then red at his daughter's blasphemous suggestion. "Do you realise what that would do to my social standing?" Lest her father's anger turn into a tirade against her, she gently consoled him with his favourite sandwich. His pallor returned to its normal colour, and Cinderleah beat a hasty retreat to her attic bedroom. Finally, the night before the royal ball arrived. Women of every colour and persuasion flooded the UK. Other eligible men stormed the kingdom, hoping to benefit from the prince's leftovers. The king himself was spotted at the airport receiving foreign dignitaries. Hotels were booked up months in advance, and there was nothing to do but build a tent city around the castle's perimeter. Amulets and prayer books were sold on every corner, predictions were made, and bets were placed on who would steal the prince's heart. The Duke of Edinburgh's daughter was a strong contender, as her father handled much of the king's coffers, and his daughter was just the exchange he was hoping to make. The prince surveyed the scene below, wondering how he ever let his mother convince him to do this. Cinderleah was applying her makeup when she heard the carriage pull up to her family home. Perfect timing, she thought. She took 2 steps at a time, only to be stopped by her sister's obnoxious voices. She tried to block them out and hide under her veil of dreams. Unfortunately, that moment did not last long. With a disapproving cluck of her tongue, Cinderleah's mother noticed the missing light fixtures in their living room. "Cinderleah, dear, it seems you have forgotten to purchase those new fixtures we talked about. Surely you don't think we can leave things like this? It appears that you will not be attending the ball after all. Good night, dear. Do please remember to put the alarm on before you retire." Cinderleah stood frozen as the door slammed shut. She tried to scream, but she found no voice. Tears streamed down her face, and she cried as she never had before. A gentle voice suddenly filled the room. Now, Cinderleah, there's no time for that. You have a ball to attend." "Who are you? I must be dreaming." "I'm definitely not a dream. I'm your fairy friend, and I have come to fix things." "Nobody can help me. I can't believe I thought my life could change." There. We're going to have you fixed up in no time at all. Do you feel better now? I don't know about you, but I didn't get dressed up for nothing. Come now, let's grab a horse and blow this joint. Cinderleah was one of the last to arrive. The traffic had been miserable. The news said something about a lunatic on skis. She stood there dazed by the sheer number of people attending the ball. An elegant woman approached Cinderleah. She was accompanied by a man whose cheap necktie spoke volumes. She was clearly a blue blood, but her kind eyes immediately put Cinderleah at ease. Cinderleah later learned that she was an important duchess. She took Cinderleah by the elbow and steered her closer to the prince. Cinderleah's heart beat faster as she realized that she had caught the prince's attention. It was then that Cinderleah spotted her mother and broke into a run in order to avoid her. She should never have come, she thought. In her haste, Cinderleah did not notice that her earring had fallen to the ground. The prince noticed the fallen earring, and being a seasoned jogger, he should have caught up with Cinderleah, but as fate would have it, she was more fleet-footed than him. The prince was very disappointed. The hawkers packed their wares, and headlines everywhere claimed the royal ball was a bust. Meanwhile at the castle, the prince would not leave his quarters. The royal staff drew the drapes as though in mourning. Ever resourceful, the duchess had a plan. She requested an audience with the queen and advised a special search team to be dispatched with instructions to find the young lady who broke the prince's heart. With renewed conviction, the prince informed the search party that the woman he adored wore clip-ons. Fortunately, Cinderleah made it home before her parents. At midnight, her family walked through the door. Cinderleah's father hobbled into the kitchen only to find the fridge empty. For the second time in this story, her father's forbidding voice could be heard throughout the house. "Cinderleah! Cinderleah! Your mother and I have been out making connections and ensuring this family's future, and in your indolence you have failed to prepare me adequate fare. I'm starving and my leg pains me so. The royal family served us nothing but English food." Cinderleah spent the night tossing and turning. It was of course the prince who occupied her thoughts. For the first time in her 19 years, Cinderleah overslept. It was her father's voice that woke her. She didn't know if she could bear seeing her family and their condescending faces. Cinderleah, however, found comfort in her secret. After all, it was she who caught the prince's eye, and even if she never saw the prince again, she revelled in that triumph. Cinderleah hastily dressed, oblivious that she had on just one earring. Just then the doorbell rang. Cinderleah hoped it wasn't the meat delivery. As it is, she barely had enough time to prepare breakfast. Cinderleah wasn't prepared for what she saw. Had she not known better, she would have thought it was an English invasion. It was in fact the Queen's search party. General Lee wasted no time. He asked for all the women residing in the home. Cinderleah knew her mother would be none too happy to see her so early, but General Lee did not seem a patient man. Cinderleah's mother appeared, and even General Lee seemed to shrink in her presence. General Lee coughed and began. "We have orders to find the young lady who stole the prince's heart. We don't know much, but we know that she can only wear clip-ons." Cinderleah's sisters quickly removed their earrings, but General Lee could not be fooled. Cinderleah, too modest to step forward, tried to fade away. After inspecting the rest of the household, General Lee turned a cursory glance towards Cinderleah and asked to see her ears. Not only were her ears unpierced, she was wearing the matching earring. Cinderleah's mother fainted from the shock of it all. Her father, who until now had kept quiet, could not contain his enthusiasm. His daughter was to be a princess. "Cinderleah, I always knew you had it in you." Well, dear audience, the rest is history. May the happy couple live happily ever after, and may all their dreams come true.
Please, everybody clap your hands. Come on, y'all.